Tell everyone how Grandma thinks she's some internet celebrity. I was standing behind the half-open classroom door with 2 apartment contracts in my handbag. At 68, I had become very good at being invisible. Not literally, of course. People saw me. They saw the gray hair I kept pinned at the back of my neck, the sensible shoes, the canvas shopping bag, the cardigan with one wooden button that never stayed closed. Cashiers called me dear. Young men held doors for me and then forgot my face before I crossed the threshold. My daughter, Laura, loved me, but she had a habit of explaining new technology to me with the slow patience people use for confused tourists. My grandchildren were worse. Ethan was 12 and Sophie was 10, and to them I belonged to the category of things that had existed before Wi-Fi. Cassette tapes, paper maps, and apparently me. They loved me in the careless way children love a familiar chair. I was useful. I made pancakes shaped like rabbits. I remembered library days. I picked them up when Laura worked late. I knew where Ethan hid his spare football boots and which stuffed fox Sophie still slept with, even though she denied it. But they did not think I had a life inside my head. That was precisely why the channel began. 3 months after my husband Daniel died, the house became so quiet that I started turning on the radio before sunrise just to hear another human voice. Daniel and I had been married 41 years. He had been a cabinet maker, terrible at dancing, wonderful at apologies, and absolutely incapable of putting a wet spoon anywhere except directly on the kitchen counter. After the funeral, everyone told me to keep busy. That phrase irritated me. Grief is not a stain you remove by scrubbing harder. So I did not keep busy. I sat with it. I walked through the house and listened to the floorboards complain in the places his weight used to press them. I opened his workshop and smelled cedar and machine oil. I found pencils sharpened to tiny yellow stubs. I found a coffee mug with a crack near the handle that I had threatened to throw away for 20 years. And one night at 2 a.m, I found a notebook. It was mine. I had started it when Laura was a baby. Whenever I learned something the hard way, I wrote one sentence down. No grand philosophy. Just things I wished someone had told me earlier. Do not lend money you cannot afford to lose. If a person is cruel only when nobody is watching, believe the private version. Never make a permanent decision while trying to escape a temporary embarrassment. A good apology contains no but. If someone keeps asking you to prove your love by suffering, they do not want love. They want control. There were hundreds. Daniel used to tease me about that notebook. One day, he said, "You'll publish your commandments." "They're not commandments," I told him. "Then why do you number them?" "Because you never listen unless there's a system." I laughed when I remembered that. And then I cried so suddenly that I had to sit on the kitchen floor. The next morning, I recorded my first video. I did not show my face. That part mattered. I placed my phone above the kitchen table, pointed it at my hands, made tea, and spoke for 4 minutes about the difference between being lonely and returning to someone who had already taught you how they would hurt you. My hands shook. Twice I forgot what I wanted to say. At the end, I whispered, "That's all," because I had no idea how people ended videos. I called the channel Quiet Harbor. The picture was a simple drawing of a lamp in a window. No surname, no city, no family photographs. I changed my voice slightly by speaking slower and lower. Not enough to sound fake, just enough that I felt protected by a thin curtain. For the first week, almost nobody watched. 9 views, then 14, then 6. One comment said, "This sounds like my grandma if my grandma had boundaries." I laughed for the first time in days. So I made another video, then another. I talked about friendships that survive only while you are useful. I talked about adult children who punish parents with silence. I talked about how to recognize when an apology is merely a request to restore access. I talked about saving money when you earn very little, about leaving a bad job without destroying your future, about the strange shame people feel when they start over after 50. I never claimed to be a therapist. I said that often. I'm only a woman who has made enough mistakes to recognize some of them twice. That sentence became the first line under every video. After 2 months, one video took off. It was called, "If They Only Respect You When You're Useful, Stop Being Useful for 1 week." I woke up to 40,000 views. By lunch, it was 90,000. By evening, strangers were quoting me back to myself. Laura called that night. "Mom, have you seen this old lady advice account everyone's sharing?" My heart kicked against my ribs. What account? Quiet something. Quiet Harbor. Half the women at work are sending clips around. I stared at the kettle. "Is it any good?" She laughed. Annoyingly good. I felt a ridiculous burst of pride. Then she added, "Ethan says she sounds ancient." From the living room, I heard him shout, "Because she does!" Sophie yelled, "She says things like self-respect every 5 seconds." They both laughed. I smiled into the phone. "Children are hard critics. Apparently, the harshest," Laura said. I had no idea how true that was. The channel grew faster after that. 100,000 subscribers became 200,000. The comments came in faster than I could read. People wrote to tell me they had left abusive relationships, called estranged sisters, opened savings accounts, apologized to children, gone back to school. Then came the money. At first, I thought the payment dashboard was wrong. I called the platform support line because I believed a decimal point had disappeared. The young man on the phone checked twice and said, "No, ma'am, that amount is correct." I wrote it down on paper. Then I stared at it for nearly an hour. It was more than Daniel and I used to save in 6 months. Sponsorship offers followed, but I turned down most of them. I was not going to spend 10 minutes warning people about manipulation and then sell them miracle powder in a shiny jar. I accepted a budgeting app I had tested for a month. I accepted a company that made emergency medical bracelets because I already wore one. I accepted a book sponsor once, then spent half the sponsorship segment criticizing the book. They never contacted me again. That made me strangely happy. By the end of the year, Quiet Harbor had become more profitable than anything I had ever done. And that was when I made the mistake that set everything else in motion. I decided not to spend the money on myself. I had enough. My mortgage was paid. My car was old but reliable. I did not want a yacht, and I considered handbags priced higher than refrigerators a form of collective madness. What I wanted was security for Ethan and Sophie. I remembered being 23, standing in a rented kitchen with a baby on my hip, calculating whether Daniel and I could afford both heating and a dentist bill. I remembered the terror of rent increases. I remembered how much of early adulthood is spent one accident away from disaster. So I opened 2 investment accounts, one for Ethan, one for Sophie. Every month, most of my channel income went into them. Then the channel crossed 1 million subscribers. That month, one of my videos earned enough for me to do something I had only joked about before. I met with a property lawyer. Her name was Rebecca Shaw. She was 40-something, sharp-eyed, efficient, and so discreet that she did not react when I explained that I was secretly the voice behind Quiet Harbor. I wanted to purchase 2 small apartments as long-term investments, one for each grandchild. They would remain legally under a trust arrangement until the children were older. Nobody needed to know yet. Rebecca tapped her pen against the folder. "You understand that property is not a simple gift. There are taxes, maintenance, legal responsibilities." "I understand. And you want them not to know?" "Not yet." "Why?" I smiled. "Because 10-year-olds become unbearable when they think they own real estate." That made her laugh. We found 2 modest apartments in a building near a university. Not glamorous. Good transport. Solid rental demand. Something that could quietly grow in value while the children grew up. I imagined giving them the keys one day. Ethan at 25, pretending not to cry. Sophie hugging me so hard my glasses went crooked. I had the whole scene in my head. I did not know that, at the same time, my grandchildren were building a very different future for me. The first sign was a comment under one of my videos. "Why do you talk like everyone's disappointed aunt?" I ignored it. Then another appeared from the same account. Imagine taking relationship advice from somebody who probably thinks Bluetooth is a dental condition. It was childish. That should have been my clue. The account name was King E12. Ethan was 12. He wore number 12 on his school football team. His online game username included Goal King. Still, I did not make the connection. Children repeat names everywhere. Millions of boys like football. Then a second account began appearing. SOPH star. Quiet Harbor probably writes her scripts on a stone tablet. Her advice is basically, drink tea and leave everyone. Can we get a face reveal? Or is the face too historical? The comments started getting likes. Other children joined in. At first, I was amused. Then the tone changed. One Friday afternoon, Laura asked me to collect the children from school because she had a dental appointment. I arrived 10 minutes early. That is how I heard my own voice coming from the playground. Not my real voice, my channel voice. A cluster of children stood around Ethan's phone while one of my videos played at double speed. My careful, slow sentences came out squeaky and ridiculous. Sophie was performing an imitation. She bent forward, clasped her hands like an old movie grandmother, and croaked, "If your friend doesn't respect your boundaries, my dear, simply sail away from the harbor." The children exploded with laughter. Ethan nearly fell against the fence. I stood across the street. None of them saw me. A boy said, "My mom watches her every night. It's so embarrassing," Ethan answered. "My grandma watches her too. Old people love this stuff." Sophie said, "I bet she lives alone with like 17 cats. We should find out who she is," another girl said. Ethan lifted his chin. "Easy. Adults are terrible at hiding stuff." For the first time since starting the channel, fear slipped under my ribs. Not because I was ashamed, because children can be careless in ways adults cannot afford to be. I had shown no face, no address, no family names, but over hundreds of videos. Had I said too much? A story about Daniel's workshop. A mention of the red bus that used to stop near my first job. A recipe my mother made, tiny crumbs. A stranger might never assemble them. A grandchild could. On the drive home, Ethan complained that the car smelled like peppermints. "It always smells like peppermints," Sophie said. "Grandma eats them like medicine." I looked at them in the rearview mirror, my own two detectives. That evening, I changed passwords, removed old metadata, and spent 3 hours reviewing my earliest uploads. I told myself I was overreacting. Then, at 11:43 p.m., Goal King 12 commented, "I know what city you live in." My mouth went dry. A minute later, SOPH Star replied, "Same LOL. I did not sleep." The next morning, I drove to Laura's house with muffins. Ethan opened the door. He took one muffin and disappeared before saying, "Thank you." Sophie was at the dining table with her tablet. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Nothing." Children say nothing with the concentration of professional criminals. I sat beside her. She immediately switched screens. Too late. I had seen the lamp logo. Quiet Harbor. "Do you watch that channel?" I asked. Her eyes widened for half a second. Then she shrugged. "Sometimes. It's cringe." "Cringe? You wouldn't understand. Try me." "She's this old lady who thinks she knows everything." "Does she?" "No." "How do you know?" "Because old people always act like surviving longer makes them experts." That sentence hurt more than the comments. Not because she called me old, because she said it with complete confidence. I looked at her little face, the freckles across her nose, the purple polish chipped from 2 fingernails. "Maybe surviving longer teaches you where some holes are," she snorted. "That sounds exactly like something Quiet Harbor would say." My heart stopped. She stared at me. For one terrible second, the room went still. Then she laughed. "Oh my God, Grandma, imagine if you were Quiet Harbor," Ethan shouted from the hallway. "She'd need to know how YouTube works first." They both laughed. I laughed too. Mine sounded almost natural, but when I drove home, I did not feel amused anymore. I felt warned. The anonymous account was no longer simply mine. It had entered my family, and my family had decided it deserved to be hunted. For the next 2 weeks, I watched my grandchildren become experts in cruelty they considered harmless. They made memes. One showed a shipwreck with the words, "Quiet Harbor," after giving dating advice. Another showed a mummy holding a microphone. Ethan posted a short video called, "Things Quiet Harbor Says Before Ruining Your Life." Set boundaries. Drink water. Leave your husband. Buy a cardigan. Die peacefully. They laughed hardest at the last one. It had 22,000 views by the time I found it. I sat at my kitchen table looking at my grandson's face, frozen mid-laugh. I could have called Laura immediately. Instead, I waited until I was no longer angry enough to enjoy punishment. Punishment is easy when you are furious. Teaching is harder. The next afternoon, Rebecca called. The seller accepted the offer on the second apartment. I closed my eyes. 2 apartments, 1 for each child. A future they did not know they were mocking. "Pause everything," I said. "Both purchases?" "Yes." "Problem with the properties?" No. The beneficiaries? I looked through the window at Daniel's old workshop. Yes, I think there may be. That evening, I uploaded a video titled, "What to Do When Someone You Love Humiliates You for Entertainment." I said, if someone you love turns your dignity into a toy, do not rush to destroy them. First find out whether they understand what they are playing with. Within hours, Goal King 12 commented, "Bro, she definitely got bullied at bingo." SOHPH Star replied with 6 skull emojis. I stared at the comments. Then Quiet Harbor liked both of them. The next day, Ethan called me. "Grandma? Yes? Do you know how YouTube comments work?" "A little. If a creator likes your comment, can they see your account? They can see a public account already." "Oh," a pause. "Why?" "No reason." He hung up. For one day, the hunter had felt the bushes move behind him, but they did not stop. A boy named Mason learned that mocking Quiet Harbor got views. He made reaction clips. Ethan joined him. Sophie appeared in one with a towel around her hair, holding a mug and pretending to tremble like a 100-year-old woman. Then came rumors. Quiet Harbor was an actress, an AI voice, a man, a woman whose children had abandoned her, a failed therapist hiding lawsuits. One rumor led people to the wrong woman, a retired principal in another state. Strangers flooded her social pages, mocked her house, and messaged her church. That ended the game for me. I posted a warning against identifying private people and turned comments off for 48 hours. At Sunday dinner, Ethan stabbed a potato and complained. "This stupid creator turned comments off." Laura looked up. "Quiet Harbor? She's scared. Maybe people were being nasty." "It's the internet," he said. "If you can't take a joke, don't post." I put down my fork. "Do you really believe posting something gives everyone permission to be cruel?" I said joke, not cruel. People say take a joke when they want the target to do all the emotional work. Sophie slowly looked at me. Ethan stared. Laura smiled. "Mom, that sounded very Quiet Harbor." My fork slipped against the plate. Then Ethan laughed. "See, even Grandma copies her." I smiled too. That night, I decided I would not reveal myself yet. If I told them now, the lesson would become, do not mock Grandma because Grandma might hear you. Too small. I wanted them to understand that you never know what another person carries, what they built, or what your cruelty can cost. And I knew children rarely learn that from speeches. So I called Laura. Are they still saving for summer technology camp? Yes, Ethan wants video production. Sophie wants animation. I want them to earn part of it. The next afternoon, I placed 2 envelopes on Laura's kitchen table. For 6 Saturdays, they would help me with a community project. Filming, editing, organizing files, captions, and research. I would pay them. If they completed the work, they would cover most of their camp fees. "What project?" Ethan asked. "I'm collecting life stories from older people." He groaned. "Old people stories?" "Some. Like homework? Sometimes history is just somebody's life before you bothered to ask." He gave me that flicker of recognition again. The first Saturday, I took them to Mr. Alvarez. He was 76. He had owned a grocery store for 39 years before a fire destroyed it. Insurance covered less than expected. At 64, he started over with a food truck. During the interview, he told us, the worst part wasn't losing the store. It was hearing people say, "At his age, why bother?" Like my future had expired. Ethan looked down at the audio levels. For a moment, I thought the plan was working. Then Mr. Alvarez called me Monday morning. His granddaughter attended Ethan's school. Children were sharing a video of him. My stomach turned cold. Ethan had secretly recorded 12 seconds before the interview when Mr. Alvarez lost his place, swore softly, and asked, "Do I look stupid?" Ethan had sent it to a group chat with the caption, "Grandpa Podcast Going Crazy. I am so sorry," I told Mr. Alvarez. "Did you post it?" "No." "Who did?" "My grandson." He was silent. Then he said, "Do not scream at him." "I wasn't going to." "Yes, you were." Despite myself, I laughed. "Make him look me in the eyes," he said. So I picked Ethan up after school and drove him to the food truck. He knew immediately. "Why are we here?" "You know why." Inside, Mr. Alvarez leaned against the counter. Ethan blamed Mason first. Mason forwarded it. "Who recorded it?" I asked. "I did, but who sent it first?" "I just sent it to our group." "It was a joke?" He nodded. Mr. Alvarez said, "Explain the joke to me." Ethan went silent. "I want to laugh too." Mr. Alvarez said. Ethan's ears turned red. It wasn't a joke. Then what was funny? I don't know. Mr. Alvarez watched him for a long moment. When my store burned, a man took a selfie with the fire behind him. He wrote, "Free barbecue." I remember wondering how my worst day became somebody else's joke before the smoke was even gone. Ethan finally looked up. "I'm sorry." "Good. Repair it." Ethan deleted the clip, admitted in the group that he had recorded it without permission, and apologized. Then Mr. Alvarez made him work the lunch shift. 4 hours chopping onions, wiping counters, carrying boxes, and handing orders through the window. At 3 o'clock, he smelled like grilled peppers and regret. "Am I getting paid for today?" he asked in the car. "No, that's not fair. You used trusted work to embarrass the person who trusted you. Losing pay for that work is very fair." He crossed his arms. "You sound like her again. Quiet Harbor? Yeah, maybe she has a point sometimes. She's still annoying. So am I. That's different. You're my grandma." The words landed harder than he intended. "You count because I know you. The stranger does not." That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Character is how you treat the person you believe cannot affect your life." I did not post it because 3 days later, Sophie found me. She came to my house after school. My laptop was on the kitchen table while I went upstairs to change. I had closed the browser. I had not closed the editing software. When I returned, Sophie was standing perfectly still. On the screen was an audio waveform. Above it, Quiet Harbor, episode 214 final. She looked at the screen, then at me, then back again. "No," she whispered. I stopped on the bottom stair. "No way. Sophie, you're her?" I said nothing. "You're Quiet Harbor?" "Yes." She covered her mouth, then started laughing from pure shock. "Oh my God, Ethan is going to die." "You are not telling Ethan." She stopped. "What?" "You found something private. That does not make it yours to distribute." Her expression hardened. "Did you know it was us?" I hesitated. Her mouth fell open. "You knew?" "Yes." "How long?" "A while." "And you read our comments?" "You posted them publicly." This is creepy. I almost admired the accusation. Then I opened the channel dashboard. Subscriber count. Views. Revenue. Her anger vanished. "That's money?" "Yes." "For 1 month?" "Yes." She leaned closer. "You're rich. The channel earns well. Mom knows?" "No." "What are you doing with all of it?" I should have lied. Instead, I said, "I was saving most of it for you and Ethan." She blinked. "For us?" "Yes." "College and more." "What more?" I closed the laptop. Her eyes narrowed. "You were buying us something." "Sophie." "A car?" "No." "A house?" I said nothing. Her eyes widened. "A house? Enough." She stared at me. Then she smiled, triumphantly. "So you can't really punish us." The room seemed to lose all its warmth. "What did you say? If the money is for us anyway." There are moments when a child says something ugly and you hear unfinished architecture beneath it. A wall built crooked. A beam that must be corrected before the roof goes on. I looked at my 10-year-old granddaughter and understood that the apartments had become dangerous before she had ever seen them. In her mind, love had become a guarantee. Being loved meant consequences could never reach her. I picked up the laptop. "You're right about one thing." "What?" "The money was for you." Her smile returned. "Was?" I walked into my study. "Grandma, what do you mean, was?" I closed the door. Then another notification appeared. A message from an account I did not recognize contained a zoomed-in screenshot from one of Ethan's old football clips. The image was blurry, but the crest on his shirt was visible. "Found the school," the message said. "Tell Grandma we're close." Laura read it over my shoulder. All the anger left her face. Ethan stared at the screen. "Who is that?" "I don't know," I said. "Do they know where we live?" "I don't know." That answer finally frightened him. Until then, the internet had been a stage. People appeared as usernames, laughed, disappeared, came back. Now one of those usernames had reached through the screen and touched a real building where he spent every weekday. Sophie began crying harder. "I didn't tell anyone the school." "You didn't have to," I said. "You gave strangers enough pieces to look for it." Ethan whispered. "Can you block them?" "Yes." "And then they're gone?" "No." He looked at me. I wanted desperately to say yes. I wanted to restore the safe little world in which deleting a comment erased what had happened. Instead, I showed him the screenshot. The original account may disappear. The image may not. Laura immediately called the school and explained that a public account had identified its crest. She did not reveal my channel identity yet, only that the children might be connected to an online privacy issue. The principal promised to alert staff and review what students had posted from school grounds. The unknown account never sent another message. It might have been a teenager bluffing. It might have been a fan trying to scare us. We never learned. That uncertainty did more than any lecture I could have given. For the first time, Ethan asked, "Were people doing this to that other woman too?" The retired principal? He nodded. "Yes. And she didn't even do anything." "No." He sat very still. Sophie wiped her cheeks. "I thought anonymous meant nobody knows who anybody is." "No," I said. "Anonymous means people can forget there is a somebody." No one had a clever answer to that. Sophie lasted 11 hours. At 6:12 the next morning, Ethan posted under my newest video, "Nice laptop, Grandma." Then, or should I say, Quiet Harbor. My stomach dropped. I called Sophie. No answer. I called Laura. "Mom, is everything okay? Take Ethan's phone. What happened?" "Take it first." By the time she got downstairs, the comments were gone. The screenshots were not. Within an hour, fan accounts were asking whether Quiet Harbor had grandchildren. Someone reposted Ethan's comment with the caption, "Did a family member just leak her?" I drove straight to Laura's house. Ethan sat at the table looking pale and furious. Sophie was crying. Laura stood between them in her bathrobe. "Tell me," she said. So I did. The notebook, the channel, the anonymity, the income, the memes, Mr. Alvarez, Sophie discovering the editing file, Ethan's comments that morning. Laura listened without interrupting. Then she turned to Sophie. "You promised Grandma you wouldn't tell him?" Sophie nodded. "Why did you?" "Because it was huge." Laura sat down slowly. Ethan became defensive. "I deleted the comments. After people saw them," I said. "I didn't say your name. You replied from an account containing your first name, football videos, and your school shirt." His face changed. He had never considered that. Laura confiscated both phones and tablets. No gaming, no social media, no camp unless I decided they had completed our work agreement responsibly. Ethan exploded. "You can't cancel camp because of her stupid channel." Laura stood so quickly the chair scraped the floor. "Her stupid channel? Your grandmother built something from grief while you turned her into entertainment." Nobody spoke. Then my phone buzzed. An email from the principal of their school. The subject line read, "Invitation for Quiet Harbor, Student Digital Responsibility Week." For one absurd second, I thought fate had developed a sense of humor. Students at the school had been discussing Quiet Harbor not always constructively. A teacher suggested inviting the creator for a virtual conversation about online behavior, privacy, and responsibility. They had no idea who I was. Ethan saw the email. "No." "No what?" "You're not going." Sophie stopped crying. Laura looked at me and knew immediately. "I think I am," I said. The children protested at once. "Everyone will know. That's humiliating." "You can't." For months they had said anyone online should learn to take a joke. Now privacy mattered. "I will not humiliate you," I said. Ethan looked unconvinced. "Then why go?" "Because you seem to understand consequences only when they enter the same room," I wrote back. I would attend in person on one condition. My identity remained confidential until I walked in. The principal agreed. The night before the assembly, Rebecca came to my house with 2 folders. Both apartment purchases were still possible. Beside the contracts lay a revised trust. The apartments would be investments, but Ethan and Sophie would no longer be guaranteed ownership at a fixed age. Rental income would build 2 conditional education and housing funds. Starting at 16, each child could earn matching contributions through work, saving, consistent volunteering, and financial education. At 25, an independent trustee would decide whether transferring a property was responsible. If not, the apartments would remain investments. Part of the income would fund housing grants for young adults, leaving foster care. I read every page. "This is enforceable?" "Yes," Rebecca said. "They cannot pressure Laura later?" "No." "And the charitable share remains protected?" "Yes." I signed. Love was unconditional. Property was not. The next afternoon, I arrived at the school through the administration office. The assembly was almost ready, but the auditorium microphone had failed, so the principal asked me to wait near a classroom. That was when I heard Ethan. The door was half open. Several students crowded around his desk. Mason was there. Sophie had been brought over from the younger class because everyone knew she had information. A boy whispered, "Come on, say it." Ethan looked nervous. Then pride won. "Say what? That quiet harbor is your grandma." Someone laughed. Ethan grinned. "Say it again," my grandson whispered into his phone, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. "Tell everyone how Grandma thinks she's some internet celebrity." I was standing behind the half-open classroom door with 2 apartment contracts in my handbag. Sophie saw me first. Her smile vanished. Mason followed her eyes. Then Ethan did. The phone lowered. I stepped into the room. "Keep recording," I said. Ethan's face went scarlet. "Grandma, no, you wanted content." Nobody breathed. I put my handbag on the teacher's desk and removed my coat. "Let's make sure you get the ending." The principal appeared behind me. "Mrs. Bennett, they're ready for you." Mason frowned. "Ready for what?" "The assembly," I said. Sophie whispered, "Oh no." Word traveled faster than we did. By the time I reached the auditorium, students were staring at Ethan and Sophie. Whispers moved through the rows. The principal introduced me only as our guest. I sat beneath the projector. A camera showed my hands on the large screen. Those hands, the same wedding ring, the same scar near my thumb, the same fingers they had watched make tea in hundreds of videos. Some students understood before I spoke. I leaned toward the microphone. I'm only a woman who has made enough mistakes to recognize some of them twice. The room erupted. Someone screamed, "No way!" Mason covered his face. Sophie slid lower in her seat. Ethan stared at the floor. I waited for the noise to settle. Then I used the voice they knew. "Good afternoon. I'm Quiet Harbor." The room exploded again. I did not show the memes. I did not reveal my grandchildren's usernames. I did not point at anyone. Instead, I told them about the innocent retired principal who had been harassed because strangers wanted a face for my voice. I described what happened to Mr. Alvarez without naming Ethan. I explained how a screenshot leaves the room you send it to, and how just a joke describes the speaker's intention, not the target's experience. Then I surprised them. I played 2 harmless parodies of my channel. One was Mason's. Students laughed. So did I. Mason looked up. "I'm not against jokes," I said. "I'm against using another person's dignity as the price of admission." Silence. At the end, a student raised her hand. "Did you know kids here were making fun of you?" I looked toward Ethan. "Yes." "Were you mad?" "Yes." "Did you want revenge?" I thought of the signed papers in my handbag. "For about 15 minutes, I wanted biblical revenge." They laughed. Then I wanted something harder. "What?" "I wanted the people involved to become better than the thing they had done." After the assembly, students surrounded me. Teachers asked for photographs. But I refused face pictures and asked the school not to post my identity. The secret was damaged but not destroyed. Mason approached me alone. "I'm sorry." "Which part?" "The rumor that you abandoned your family. I posted it." "Did you believe it?" "No." "Why post it?" He stared at his shoes. "It got views." I handed him a card with my channel email. "If you want to repair it, make a correction, send it to me before you post it." "You'd help me?" "I'll tell you if it creates another victim." He nodded. Ethan and Sophie waited by the doors. Neither spoke on the drive home. At my house, I placed the 2 folders on the kitchen table. "What are those?" Ethan asked. "The answer to Sophie's question." I opened the first. "Property listings, valuations, legal contracts." Ethan read the addresses. "You were actually buying apartments?" "Yes." "For us?" "Yes." His face fell. Sophie whispered, "And now you're not." "I am buying them." Both looked up. "What?" "I signed today." Confusion replaced grief. Ethan reached for the folder. "So they're ours?" "No." I slid the revised trust summary across the table. "They are mine. Their rental income will build 2 funds. You may earn access to those funds over time. You can prove you are responsible enough to receive extraordinary help, or you can choose not to." Ethan read faster. "Earn access? But they were already for us. They were intended for you. Intention is not a debt. That's punishment." "Partly." Sophie's eyes filled. "What if we don't do all this? The properties stay investments. Some income helps other young people with housing. So strangers get our money?" I leaned back. "There is no 'our money' in this room." Silence. It was the hardest sentence I had ever said to them, and the most necessary. Ethan stood so fast his chair fell over. "I hate this." Laura, listening from the doorway, did not stop him from running upstairs. Sophie stayed. She cried quietly, then asked, "Do you still love us?" I moved beside her, completely. Then why not give us the apartments? Because loving you and trusting your judgment are not the same thing. She wiped her face. What do we have to do? Nothing for the apartments today? No. What do we do now? That question mattered more. Now you repair what you can. That week, Sophie posted from SOPH star beneath a Quiet Harbor video. I made jokes here because I thought anonymous meant unreal. I was wrong. I'm deleting the cruel ones because there was a person on the other side. Ethan took 3 weeks. Then he asked Mr. Alvarez if he could return to the food truck, paid this time, at minimum wage. Mr. Alvarez agreed. Ethan worked Saturdays for 4 months. His first paycheck was small. He brought it to my kitchen in an envelope. How much does the fund match? $2 for every dollar you save from earned work. So if I save all of this, I match it. He narrowed his eyes. This is a terrible deal compared to a free apartment. Most adulthood is. He laughed despite himself. Months passed. Quiet Harbor remained anonymous to most of the public. The school story nearly leaked twice, but students surprised me by protecting it. Mason posted his correction video without identifying me. It got fewer views than the rumor. He left it up. Sophie started helping me animate anonymous viewer stories. She became very good at it. She asked permission before using anything, even when she thought permission was obvious. Ethan edited interview footage. Every project now had a folder labeled consent. That was his idea. A year later, both apartments were rented. The rent flowed into the trusts exactly as the documents required. Ethan saved enough to pay for half his summer program himself. Sophie used some of her earnings to buy a drawing tablet, then spent 20 minutes reading the return policy because, as she told me, apparently decisions have consequences. I pretended not to notice the imitation of my voice. One Sunday evening, we sat in my kitchen editing together. On the screen was my newest title, Never Confuse Being Loved with Being Owed. Ethan groaned. This is about us, isn't it? I took a peppermint from the bowl. No names. Grandma. Sophie laughed. I clicked publish. Ethan reached for a peppermint. Fine. But if this one goes viral, I want overtime. I handed him the timesheet. He stared at it. I stared back. Sophie laughed first. Then all 3 of us did. Upstairs, my phone began vibrating with the first new comments.